weeks ago, I was watching some YouTube videos and I saw a video and the title of it was Testing Out Equestrian Hacks. And I was like, okay. Well, I noticed in the thumbnail that one of my thumbnails from one of my barn hacks videos was in her video. And I was like, I wonder if she's gonna try to debunk some of my barn hacks or equestrian hacks. And then that got me thinking, I have not done an equestrian hacks video in a very long time, very long time. So I thought it might be helpful to do a new equestrian hacks video, and that is what today's video is all about. Hello my equestrian friends, it's me Lisa, the Budget Equestrian. Welcome back to a new video. And like I said in the beginning, I haven't done a equestrian hacks or a barn hacks video in a very long time. So I thought it would be really fun to share with you 25 barn hacks or equestrian hacks. Trust me, they actually do work because I use them all the time. We all know how important it is for our horses to get the right amount of hay, but trying to kind of pick up a bucket and figure out how much hay is in there, well, it's not an exact science, but you can solve that really easily by simply getting a fishing scale. A fishing scale is really nice to have in your barn because you can just hang it up, and then either using a hay net or a bucket, you can figure out the weight of the bucket or the hay net first without the hay. Then you put the full bucket onto the fishing scale and it'll tell you how much it weighs. So for example, my horse, he gets 10 pounds of hay in the morning and 10 pounds in the evening. And for our pony, he gets 5 pounds of hay in the morning and 5 pounds of hay in the evening. But knowing exactly how much hay that I'm feeding them is better for them, and it makes my hay last longer too. One thing that I've noticed is if you have a lot of saddle pads or you use a lot of towels in your barn, it can be really challenging to bring those back into the house. So you can go about it a couple of different ways to make it easier. You can take a Dollar Tree laundry basket and put it into your tack room, or you could use a mesh laundry bag and just hang that in your tack room, or you can do what I do and just use a large bag. I have a very pretty bag that I got from Equestrian Stockholm, and it's large enough to hold several saddle pads along with a lot of towels that I like to use in my barn and in my tack room. It's really easy to throw the towels in there, and when my saddle pads are dirty, I can throw those in there as well. Then I can just take them in the house and wash them, fold them, and then bring them back out to my tack room. Have you ever thought to use pine salt in your barn? Pine salt is awesome. It is a fantastic deodorizer, and actually it kills germs. So it kills germs and bacteria. And maybe not right now, but in the summertime, I love to use pine salt in my horses' stalls. I don't spray it on my horses, but I do spray it on the walls and the floor of their stalls. It helps to keep the flies away. Yes, pine salt is a great fly repellent, and you can usually get 2 big bottles of it, like jugs of it, at Sam's Club or Costco for about $10. That's a lot cheaper than fly spray. And spraying fly spray in the barn, while it might seem like a good idea, it's really wasteful and it's very expensive. But the pine salt works great. You can either water it down or you can use it full strength if you have a really bad fly problem. Not only does it help to reduce the amount of flying insects in your barn, but it'll make your barn smell great too. And I love Dollar Tree. If you've seen any of my older videos, you know that I love going to the Dollar Tree. They have things that you can use even as an equestrian. And one thing that I found was if you buy the Dollar Tree cooling racks, you can secure them together, hang them on a wall, and they make great hanging hooks for hanging up spray bottles and different things like that. I love the cooling racks from the Dollar Tree, and they're $1.25, so they're not the strongest in the world, but it's a really nice way to have some extra storage in your barn. Equestrian hack number 5 is to keep all of your old spray bottles. Don't ever throw those things away. If you have old fly spray bottles or shine spray bottles, whatever, keep the bottles. Also keep the sprayers because they come in really handy too. What I like to do is take the spray bottles, wash them out, and the sprayers too, and I customize them. You can use paint, you can use washi tape, you can even just use duct tape if you wanted to. If you didn't want to, you don't have to do anything. But if you aren't going to customize your spray bottles, or if you do, I highly recommend to make a label for the spray bottle so you know what's in it. For example, my spray bottles, I have a fly spray, I have a stall spray, and I also have a shine spray. So if I want to make my own concoctions, I can refill the bottles or I can replenish the bottles with store-bought sprays. It's a lot cheaper to buy a gallon of fly spray than it is to buy the single like 32-ounce containers. So I buy a gallon, and then using some funnels, again, that I got at the Dollar Tree, I refill all of my saved bottles with the new spray. It saves money, and I think it looks pretty nice too. Have you ever used expandable bedding? This is the expandable pelleted bedding. I don't know if they have it in your area, but if they do, I highly encourage you to try this stuff out. This is my new most favorite bedding for my horses' stalls. It takes less space in the barn. They're smaller than a big, huge bag of shavings, and there is a lot less waste. Expandable bedding is a hack or a tip that I would highly encourage you to find out if they have in your area. I have heard people say that they use wood pellets, like the kind that you burn in a pellet stove. As long as it doesn't have anything added to it, I'm sure that would be fine. But the hack that I really wanted to share with you is if you are using expandable bedding, what you do is you bring the expandable bedding package into your stall, then using a knife, you cut an X down the front of the expandable bedding, then cut a couple more lines in it, and then add a bucket of water to the bedding before you remove it. So while the bedding pellets are still in the bag, you dump a bucket of water. Then you can go clean another stall or do whatever you need to do and come back in about 10 to 15 minutes, and a lot of the pellets will have turned into sawdust or your new bedding. It makes it really easy to spread the bedding out, and a lot of the pellets are already broken down, so it's nice and soft for your horse. It works great, and I really encourage you to give it a try. Now, I made a video about this a long time ago. Hay nets, filling hay nets. Hay nets are a pain to fill, but if you're like me, we don't buy our hay in the regular bales. We buy them in the larger bales, so a 3x3 or a 3x4 bale. The bale of hay I have right now is 3x4. And the flakes that are on this size of a hay bale are a lot larger than a small bale of hay. But hay nets are great for feeding your horses. I fed my horses with hay nets for a very long time. There's less waste than I know, again, how much food they're getting. But they are so difficult to fill. So I have a couple of ways that you can get around the filling process of the hay nets. You can use a garbage can if you have one. I have a plastic one that I've used for years and it works great. Or if you have the little totes, like the little manure totes, I guess they are, those work really well too. It makes it a lot easier to fill the hay nets, and then you can weigh it and know exactly how much your horse is getting. Now, if your horse has to take a medication like a pill every day, it can be difficult to get them to take the pill. I don't know too many horses that like to take pills, so what I like to do is put it into a soft horse treat. But after a while, those soft horse treats get kind of hard, and it makes it really difficult to get the pill into the horse treat. So one way to get around that is if you take some of the horse treats, for example, mine are the German muffins, the German horse muffins, and I take about 7 or 8 of them and I put them on a small cutting board, and then I put it into my microwave. Now I only heat them up for about 8 to 10 seconds. And once they're done, I put them on the counter, and then the horse treats easily break in half, making it a lot easier for me to prepare pills for my horse to take. So we call them, they're his Equiox cookies. So I put one of the Equiox pills into a half of a horse treat, form it into a little ball, like if it's a cookie ball, before you put it on a cookie sheet, and then I put it into a Ziploc baggie. The microwave really helps to soften the horse treats and makes it easier for me to put the medication into the treat. And by creating a bunch of treats at one time, then it saves time in the morning when I go to give him his Equiox cookie with his morning feed. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the next 2 tips are really, really awesome. And I don't know, have you ever seen the tiger's tongue sponge? I got one of these one time in one of the Heart to Horse boxes, or one of the saddle boxes that I subscribed to. And I was like, okay, this is a cool sponge. Holy cow. Did I really play that down, because that sponge is awesome. Number one, it works great on your horse's coat. If your horse has any sweat marks or anything like that, or you just need to go over him real quick and smooth everything out and make him look great, the tiger's tongue sponge works great. It also works great for bathing and getting caked on dirt and stuff off of their hooves. But if you live in an area where you use a big water tank for your horses and you notice that it's getting an algae buildup when you clean it, sometimes that algae can be really challenging to get off. With the tiger's tongue sponge, it will clean anything. And it's gentle enough to use on your horse and on your water bucket too. So what I like to do is take the tiger's tongue sponge and a little bit of Dawn dish soap, put that onto the sponge, then I can scrub the water tank. I have never seen anything work so well to get a water tank nice and clean. It works great on water buckets too. And the second thing I like to use the tiger's tongue sponge for, so this is hack number 10. When there is a large algae buildup, which usually seems to happen in the summertime, the sun hits the water and then the algae just goes crazy and then my horses have green water and I don't like that. So I will take some apple cider vinegar and some Dawn dish soap along with my tiger's tongue sponge for cleaning the water buckets. So first I'll take about a half a bottle, so probably about 8 ounces of apple cider vinegar. Doesn't have to be any certain brand. I recommend the cheap brand because the other stuff can get pretty expensive. And I just put about 8 ounces into the bucket. Then I put a little Dawn dish soap onto my tiger's tongue sponge. Then I scrub and scrub and scrub on the water tank. Then once I've scrubbed the entire water tank, I will let it set for about 10 minutes and then I'll come back out and rinse it. I'll add a little bit more water and then scrub everything down again to make sure I get all of the soap and algae off, and rinse it until there's no more bubbles forming in the water tank. This works so well. I can usually get by with about 2 weeks of not having more algae growing into the horses' tanks. And I know they really appreciate it because they drink more water. Now my equestrian hack number 11, using coconut oil for your horse's hooves. It actually works really well, and I've talked about this in other hack videos that I've done. I really like the coconut oil that's more of a solid, and then I can just kind of paint it on my horse's hooves. It also works really well to paint on the chestnuts that form on the inside of your horse's legs. So it helps to make it easier so that you can peel those off. You can use a knife, like a bot fly egg knife, to take those off too, but I prefer to kind of peel them away. And using the coconut oil for about a week, continuously and religiously twice a day, makes it easy to peel those chestnuts away. You can also use the coconut oil on your horse's mane and tail to act as a detangler. I don't do it all the time, but in a pinch, it really works great. Now this one might be a little bit controversial because this is slapping a band-aid on a problem. But at one time I had a horse named Pleasant and he was the coolest horse. He was a Dutch warm blood, but he had been used in a lesson program for a really long time. So he got really good at being evasive to accepting the bit. And I tried everything. I thought I tried everything. I know I probably didn't try everything, but then I watched somebody use a fruit roll-up to get a horse that was hard to take the bit to take the bit. So I did that a couple of times on Pleasant and it was a night and day difference. Yes, that's slapping a band-aid on it. It's not solving the problem. But after I did that a couple of times with him, the next time I went to put the bit into his mouth, and of course I was very, very careful. I didn't have a fruit roll-up on it. He took the bit just fine with no problem. So if your horse is a little bit challenging when it comes to taking the bit, once in a while I think slapping a band-aid on it isn't such a bad idea. Try a fruit roll-up and see how he likes it. You could also do the fruit by the foot because that's a little bit easier to wrap around the bit and you don't have to use a whole lot of it. But you can wrap the fruit by the foot easier than you can an entire fruit roll-up. Now my number 13 hack, it's pretty simple and I'm pretty sure people have thought of it before, but if you have horses at home, you probably end up with a lot of twine. I have so much twine in my barn, so I started taking some of it and putting it into my garage and hanging it on a hook on the wall because we can always use twine for tying things up. But I thought it would be really cool to make a lead rope. Now, this isn't the greatest lead rope in the world, but it's an emergency lead rope and you can never have enough lead ropes, right? So I just took 9 strands of twine and I put those into sets of 3. I braided each of those sections together, which gave me 3 larger pieces of twine. Then I braided that together and put a carabiner hook on one end. I didn't have a snap hook, but if you had that, you could use that too. I kind of tied the twine around the carabiner, so it's not going to be the strongest thing in the world, but it would work in a pinch. And then I did use my hot glue gun to make it a little bit stronger. And I tied a big knot on the bottom, and then I put hot glue all the way around that. So again, not the most perfect lead rope in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but if you need a couple of extra lead ropes, I'm willing to bet you've got a lot of twine and you could put it to good use. Number 14 equestrian hack. Have you ever thought about using Dollar Tree shoe organizers in your barn? These things are amazing. So I have one hanging in my tack room that I keep a lot of spray bottles in. It's a nice way to keep the spray bottles together. They don't get lost. And since I have extra spray bottles, it's nice to keep it in my tack room, along with the grooming kit I keep in there. I can keep extra fly spray, stall spray, whatever I want. And the pockets in the shoe organizer fit the 32-ounce bottles perfectly. I also use one of the shoe organizers in my closet in my house. That way I keep all of my gloves in there so they don't get lost. It also works really well for stocking hats too. And I think it would be a really good idea for you to even consider using in your horse trailer. You could keep a lot of things in there and not worry about them getting lost. Now, if you're unlike me and you only have a couple of saddle pads, you probably notice that your saddle pads get dirty and they can end up with some horsehair on them, especially if it's shedding season. One way to get around that is to have a Dollar Tree brush or a stiff horse brush and keep that next to your saddle pad. Then once your saddle pad has dried out, you can knock off the dirt with the stiff brush. You'll probably still be able to get another ride or two out of your saddle pad. And for Western saddle pads, I would think it would work really well because Western saddle pads, you can't wash as easily as you can an English saddle pad. So if you have a stiff brush, you can just knock off the horsehair and the dirt, sweat on the bottom of your saddle pad, and it'll make your saddle pad last longer. Something else that I did and I love, and I think I shared this, but I'm not 100% sure, but if you have horse blankets that your horses wear and coolers and things like that, it can be a little bit challenging to get them folded up and looking really nice. And if they're wet, you don't want to fold them up. You want to allow them to dry out. So what I decided to do, instead of buying one of those fancy horse blanket holders or racks, I decided to make one. And it's very affordable to do. All I did was find some cast iron shelf brackets, put it onto a 2x8 piece of wood, and then I secured that piece of wood into my tack room. This way I can hang up as many horse blankets, coolers, fly sheets that I have, as long as I have enough hooks available. It has worked so well, and I would highly recommend this if you wanted to store your horse blankets up off of the ground and not have to fold them up. Now right now when I'm making this video, it is really cold. That's why I have a flannel on, I have a jacket on, and I have my gloves on. So I love this tip, and you may have heard of this before, but my hands always get cold in the wintertime, no matter what. Sometimes even in the springtime, my hands are cold. So what I like to do is to wear 2 pairs of gloves. Now I have some winter gloves, but they're super, super thick, and it's really hard to feel and do things with my horses with winter gloves on. So what I like to do is take a pair of nitrile gloves that are really, really thin. I put those on first, and then I put on my regular gloves. Not only does that help to keep the warmth close to my hands, it also creates a barrier. So if I were to put my hand into a water bucket or get it wet, that water is not going to transfer to my hand. Yes, my glove is going to be wet, but it'll dry off and not get my hands wet. This is a really helpful tip, especially if you are cleaning stalls and it's in the wintertime and your manure rake is metal. Well, it's going to get cold. So by doing this, you still have full use of all of your fingers and your hands stay warm while you're cleaning stalls or doing any chores with your horse. So my barn hack number 19 is using a strainer to keep your water tank clean. And you don't have to have a fancy strainer. One of my horses loves to dunk hay into the water tank. I think he likes to have it wet when he's eating it. I don't know. So sometimes you'll find that there are strands of hay in your water tank, or there's flying insects or debris. And one way to keep your water tank clean is to clean it daily with a strainer. Now I have just a cheapy strainer that we used to use in our house, and when we replaced it, I brought it outside. It's just a metal strainer, but it works great to remove debris out of my horse's water. And I'll typically use this once a day when I'm cleaning stalls to remove any debris from the water tank. It helps to keep the water fresh longer, and it's so easy to do. It's actually, I mean, it's so easy. You should just try it. I'm telling you, it works. If your horse wears blankets or boots and that have Velcro on them, it's really hard to get the horse hair out of the Velcro on the horse blankets, anything really, actually. One way to get around that is you can get these little brushes from the Dollar Tree. They also sell them on Amazon. You can get a 6-pack for $5.99. So it's a little bit more expensive than the Dollar Tree. Well, not really, because if you bought 2 packs at the Dollar Tree, it would be $2.50. Yeah, it's still more expensive. Yeah. So it would be $2.50 for the Dollar Tree version, $6 for the Amazon version. And then you just use that little metal brush on the Velcro portion and it will remove the horse hair. I have found this so helpful every year that my horses have worn blankets during shedding season to remove that hair, so the Velcro is still easy to use. The little metal brushes will actually remove hair from girths too. So something to keep in mind. Now, if you're anything like me, you love to have storage in your barn, in your tack room, and in your feed room. But having a storage organizer or building something, it can get a little bit expensive. But if you feed your horse supplements, have you considered using your supplement pails to create some storage? So I feed my horses Strongid 2CX, the daily dewormer. And so I have a lot of these supplement containers, and I don't want to throw them out because that's just, to me, it's just wasteful. So I found a really easy solution to this. I took a couple of those supplement containers and I secured them to the wall. I also had some leftover wood flooring. I put a piece of that over the top. Now I have 2 places to store things as well as a shelf on the top. I'm so proud of this. It was so easy to do just with stuff I had. And I think I am going to add to it and just kind of keep building up my storage supply. The only problem with having storage is then you've got to remember where everything lives. But I think it's really helpful, and if you're looking for a quick and easy way to store stuff and keep your grooming equipment or whatever it is organized, this is a really helpful way to go. Do you have an old yoga mat? I did. I don't do yoga very much, but thankfully my yoga mat was blue. There's so many things that you can do in your barn with an old yoga mat. You can use it as a shelf liner. You can use it as to put on top of a table, so it's a table liner. And if it is blue, and if you're a jumper, you could actually take it out into your arena and set it up, and you have a Liverpool that you could use. Talk about an affordable Liverpool, right? You can also cut up a yoga mat and cut it into strips and put it over top of a bridle rack, like where you're going to hang your bridle, or even where you rest your saddle. That way your saddle and your bridle isn't going to get the marks from the bridle rack or the saddle rack. Pretty handy. Now, tip 23 is something I did a long time ago, and it's still very useful. Using a very large PVC pipe for a whip holder out in my arena. This is so nice to have, and okay, yes, I leave my whips out in my arena during the summer, during the winter. It's probably not the best place to leave them, but when they're there in the whip holder, I always know where they're at, and that's usually where I need them, is when I am riding in my arena. So I just took a piece of PVC pipe that's like 3.5, 4 inches wide. I secured it to one of the posts in my arena, and it's open on both ends. So if there's water that goes to the top, it's going to go out through the bottom and into the ground, and it's not going to ruin my whips. I've done this for a couple of years and I haven't had any issues, knock on wood. All of my whips are still in good shape. Maybe that's because they're good quality. I don't know, but I really like it, and it's really helpful, and it's made a difference in saving me some time when I actually get time to ride my horse. And speaking of riding horses, tip number 24 is a DIY dressage arena. Now at the Dollar Tree, they have the little cones, the little orange cones that you can buy. Now if you get the small ones, and I mean they're really small, they're like this. I think I have some somewhere. Do I have some? So they have the really small orange pylon cones, or they have the larger ones. And the larger ones are great if you wanted to put some dressage letters on there and make yourself a dressage arena. When I get to start riding again, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use those supplement containers, those Strongid 2CX containers, and put that on the bottom. Then I'm going to attach one of those orange cones to the top. I think I'm going to spray paint everything white, and then I'm going to make letters using my Cricut machine, just vinyl letters, that I can put onto the cones. And then I can just simply pick them up and bring them back into the barn. I have had the dressage arena letters before, the ones that go into the ground, and they're really nice to have, but eventually the lettering wears off. So this is a really simple solution that you can pick up and take with you. And that would be really helpful because then you're really going to learn where the letters are in your arena, as well as how far apart they are. And if you're in a boarding facility, you don't have to worry that your dressage arena letters are going to disappear. And my 25th hack that I think is awesome is my first aid kit. Now, I've done multiple videos on my first aid kit, and I think it's because I love it and it works so well. But I took a Husky rolling toolbox with separate compartments and I turned it into a first aid kit. If you have a horse, you really need a first aid kit. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The more prepared you are for something to happen with your horse, the better off you're going to be when it happens, because eventually something is going to happen if you have horses at your home, and it's better to be prepared. And it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I'm going to leave a link to my video because this is all about hacks, and I'd love it if you would go check that video out and learn a little bit more about first aid for your horse.